Hello everyone, I'm Wayne Wink, I'm the North Hempstead Town Clerk, and we're here today as part of Talk of the Town with an artist and teacher extraordinaire, Ed Balcourt. Ed, good morning, how are you?
Good morning.
It's always
Great.
a pleasure to see you, Ed.
Thank you.
Yeah, we go back quite a ways, and
We do.
and this is just an opportunity, I think, to talk a little bit about you, which I suspect, given your subjects, maybe your least favorite subject, because your portraits seem to be some of your most favorite subjects. But let's talk a little bit about you and your upbringing and how you got to being the artist and the teacher that you are.
Okay.
So where'd you grow up?
Brooklyn, New York.
Fantastic.
I thought everybody did.
And I did, so.
Okay, there we are.
All right, so did you get your artistic desire and skill from Brooklyn, or did you pick it up along the way?
Well, when I was small, I used to bring home my drawings from public school, and my mother used to hang it up on the wall and brag about it, and
I suspect mothers inspired art more than almost any
she
other
did inspire
population.
me at that time, and I did carvings and everything else. And my father was a pharmacist, and he wanted me to become a pharmacist, and I studied medicine when I went to college, and the war came along, and I served. I was away for almost 4 years.
Where'd you serve?
I served in the Army, and I was overseas on the Pacific side.
Wow.
I'm a World War II veteran.
I know.
There's a
That's
few
it's
of
kind of
us
a hint
left.
at your age. I was gonna save that for later, but
Okay.
one of the great things about Ed is that not only is he a mentor and a teacher and a great artist, but Ed does all this at the ripe old age of 91, or should I say the ripe
Wait a
young
minute.
age of
I'm
91.
going to be 92 Saturday.
Oh, Saturday?
Yeah.
Fantastic. See, now we've got a birthday party in the making right here. This is wonderful.
Yes.
So, at 90, almost 92, no one would probably begrudge you the ability to sit back and rest on your laurels and have, your portraits and all the painting that you do kept to yourself, but you've been giving back for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
Now, how did you hone your craft? Where did you start off? What was your first sort of job in the industry, as it were?
Well, I said I was studying medicine, and then even when I was studying medicine, we would look under the microscope, and I would draw what had to be, the things under the microscope, and the teacher always took my drawing and said, here's what it's supposed to look like.
Wow.
And it got a little bit embarrassing already because I was the only one that showed. But, and then he said I should study medical art. But the war came along and it changed everything. I was in active service for a couple of years fighting. I'm one of the fighters. Thank God I lived through it. And when I got malaria and they put me in a hospital, they transferred me to Special Services and Entertainment Group.
Okay.
I didn't know that existed in the Army. And that took care of the USO shows.
Wasn't that where Ronald Reagan and Bob Hope came
Bob
out of,
Hope.
right? Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Bob Hope was one of my shows.
Was he really?
Yes.
So out of malaria comes the entertainment industry.
I started, the entertainment industry, and I took a course. I took a correspondence course on art
Okay.
from one of the colleges from out west, and I gave it to my captain, and
Yeah.
they marked me and so forth. So I had a year's experience. And when I got out of the Army, I finished up in Pratt Institute.
So Pratt Institute helps you hone your artistic
that
skills.
basically put me on the map. But I studied illustration at Pratt. And so I branched off later on to illustrating. I was an illustrator on magazines.
So were you working for a variety of magazines or for one or two in
Well, I
particular?
was working for a variety of magazines. I was a freelancer. Since I was farming out artwork and to other artists, just to meet the deadlines, it didn't matter whose name was on it at that time.
Right.
The art director said, just bring it in Monday morning, finished, and that's it. So it became where there were so many artists that I could get in touch with that I became an artist representative. And that's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
There you go. And
Okay.
you can paint inspirationally as opposed to on timelines.
Yeah, and then, I could do whatever I want on weekends.
Okay.
And that's what it was for the next 30, 40 years, that I spent in New York.
Fantastic. Now, you also mentioned that you were doing covers for novels and
Yes,
and paperbacks.
I did the most covers of probably any studio in this world.
Really?
Yes, I had over 100 men working for me
Wow.
sometime in the 1950s. I also was in the movie business. I had a studio for advertising, for illustration, and for movies. I had 3 studios.
So you did the movie art, the
We
posters.
did
and whatnot.
Cinema Visions. It was called Cinema Visions, and we did the posters.
So now, all of that seems to lend itself, I imagine, to a lot of portrait type work and things of that nature. Is that
Yes.
mostly what inspires you, portraits? Because obviously we have
That-
a wide variety of your
Well,
portraits
that
here that are
background-
very evocative. But-
Yes, I'm sorry. But that really inspired me to go into fine arts when I
Okay.
retired.
Okay. And when did you retire? Because obviously, obviously you're still working. You're just doing it out of love and not out of necessity.
1986, I
Okay.
remember that day. January 1986.
Oh, very nice.
I retired, and most people retire to go to Florida, right? That's where all my neighbors went and my friends. But I went to Syracuse. We had a tight knitted family at that time, and my son was working in Syracuse. So I went to Syracuse to watch my grandchildren grow up, and Syracuse University picked me up, and they said, "Would you like to teach here?"
So now you're at Syracuse and you're teaching at Syracuse. How long were you at Syracuse?
6 years,
6 years. Okay.
and then I retired to Florida,
Okay.
and then I started to teach in Florida
Wonderful.
in a private high school. It was a private high school that prepped them for college, but a lot of people were, some of them were attention deficit, and they did things that you can't imagine. One of them won a scholarship to a college because of his drawing.
Wow.
So
That's wonderful.
it
Fantastic.
turned out to be very.
So now, how long were you in Florida?
Almost 15 years.
Oh, 15 years, okay. So now you're in, mid to late 2000s.
Okay.
How do you find your way back to Port Washington?
Now, my wife died.
Oh, okay. So when your wife passes away,
My wife passes away, and my youngest son says, "Dad, you don't know what to do in the kitchen, so I'm going to put food on the table and a roof over your head. You're going to live with me." And so I did. Then he got a job in Louisiana. So I went to Louisiana.
okay.
And in Louisiana, everybody is an artist. They're either in music, in jazz, and
Right.
whatever it is. And so I joined an art club, and eventually I became master artist of the year. And you know what it is? If you're an apprentice artist, you have to win 5 contests. You have to come in first place 5 times within 1 year to
Okay.
get into the master division.
Oh, wow, okay.
Now, when you're in the master division, you're up against professionals and people that are
Right.
top painters.
So you go into a community that's renowned for artists,
Yes.
and quickly become part of the top of the heap, as it were. Huh?
Now, yes. Now, I think I'm pretty sure that this was one of my first paintings that I delivered there.
So that was one of the ones that put you on the map in Louisiana.
That put me on the map.
All right.
That's one. but I won 9 contests out of 11 that I entered.
Wow. All
And I
right.
became Master Artist of the Year.
So we get to
Now-
Paul Washington. How do we get here?
My son lost a job.
Okay.
Now I came here.
Yeah, well, the recession starts
Now
in
I'm
2008,
here
so.
living- And I have a son watching over me here.
Okay.
And I'm living by myself. One of the reasons I came here is because we have wonderful lunches
Oh, yes.
at this.
Yes.
And they cook it right here.
Right.
And this is my main meal,
Mhm.
and I only have to cook a light meal at home, so
Okay.
it's,
So you literally paint for your supper, as it were.
that's true.
So you're here, and not only do you get a great lunch at the senior center and the camaraderie that comes with it, you give back to the community
Yes.
by teaching some of your fellow congregants here, the art of teaching, right?
Yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. And you do this not only at the Paul Washington Senior Center, but also over at St. Stephen's as well?
Yes, I do that at St. Stephen's.
Yeah, you obviously have a real passion for this, and you've obviously
I
been
do.
incredibly successful.
I do it.
You've made an
And-
entire career out of it.
This, it keeps the mind going. It
Mhm.
relaxes people.
Right.
And there's certain colors that they use that stimulate the brain.
Right.
You need a blood flow to the brain at our
Absolutely.
age.
And I know you're an accomplished artist in your own right, but are there particular artists that you aspire to, or who you find particularly influential?
True. Remember I said I worked in New York?
Mm-hmm.
I got to see artists, and there were artists working for me, over 100 artists. I got to see how they work,
Okay.
and they don't have that today. There's studios that they had years ago, and I was able to go up to the studio and see, 50 guys working and go around and see how they work.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is, it starts with the masters, that encouraged me originally, where they did realistic paintings. And it shows you can read history all through the years, all through the masters. When I do a portrait, I'd like to get the height of an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
That particular height of an emotion,
Right,
you
right.
see, not to exaggerate it, but I describe it to my students like if I took a ball, we're not looking at the weight of the ball or the velocity, then I throw it, and I throw it up visually, you would see it go up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, when it goes to this height, that's the height of an emotion
Right, right.
I'm talking about. I don't have to throw it to the ceiling to over-exaggerate it. But, like in this case here, they said if I put ice cream in his hand instead of a gun, he'll smile.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put ice cream in his hand. Yeah, I couldn't get him to smile. And so I said, can I take a bite of your ice cream? And he started to whimper. You see his cheeks
Exactly,
lipping up?
yeah.
And so he says, Poppy, don't take too big a bite of my ice cream.
So
I
you got
captured
the
that.
height of frustration over the fact that he's got this 2 scoops of
Absolutely,
ice cream
yeah.
next to him, and he can't quite eat it. Now you're threatening to take some
Right.
from him.
It doesn't have to be a smile. I
Right,
mean, if I
right,
said, I'm waiting, I'm going to take your picture, smile.
Yeah.
So you smile. And then I said, well, wait a minute, I got to focus.
Uh-huh. Right.
Okay,
Right.
this smile is wearing down,
Right,
right?
right.
Oh, to smile, and then oh, my flash is not working.
Right, right.
And now it's worn down.
Exactly.
And I lost that height of a smile.
Right. That's great. Well, let's take a moment, if we could, and go over and see some of your other portraits that are over here.
This one is, you know what you could do? You could take a...
As a certified portrait artist, these are, I think, some of the most amazing portraits I've ever seen. And this one in particular just seems to leap off the page. I accidentally before referred to these as photos, but in reality there's so much more than a photo could ever be, because a photo always has that two-dimensional feel to it. This actually feels like it comes off the canvas,
Yeah,
and it is a true-to-life, true-to-life replica of the person you're painting.
I try to paint texture, skin texture.
Right.
If it's a feather, it should look like a feather. If it's hair,
Right.
it should feel like hair. And I do that. This happens to be a Crow Indian, and they put white paint down their face, and you can see it even on the eyelashes.
Right,
I
right.
put that there.
You can see kind of the beaten down, nature in the face,
Yeah.
but you can also see that overwhelming sense of pride that he still has. It really is just a wonderful, wonderful view of that.
This is a Zuni Indian, and this one happens to be mad. You could see the lighting on this. There's a light side and a dark side.
Right.
And the leather skin, in a dark side, I might maybe
Right.
put all the little things, details in it.
Yeah, and even just the texture of the blanket and whatnot really
You can
comes out.
see the texture of blanket, that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Texture is
Yep.
very important. This is cotton and this is wool.
Right,
This
right.
is,
Right, you can
and-
see, this is more fine, this is very
Yes,
coarse.
absolutely.
It's wonderful.
And the texture of skin, the
Right.
leather type skin and their hair.
Right.
This is a portrait of my wife, and that's her in the background too. And that's a portrait of me. This is about 15 years ago or so when I lived in Florida, and I'm nice and tan in this picture. And my wife is saying, don't take a picture of him until I fix his hair. And that's what she's doing. She's standing on her tippy toes, fixing my hair with her fingernails, which were long. I used to bring her a dozen roses. It didn't have to be an occasion. Business was good, so I could afford it. And then one day I brought home one rose. Business took a turn, and she said it was just the thought of it. She started to cry about it. And so from then on, I brought home one rose. Anyhow, this is an Egyptian that was fighting for freedom, and I thought I would do that. I try to tell a story, and this is this, and this is this, and this is he's fighting for freedom.
Right.
And then they're still fighting for freedom.
What's amazing is you can almost pick out of his eyes, how the eyes can reflect
Yes.
the scenery that they're looking into, and you can
There's-
almost pull that right out of his eyes.
Yes, and there's like an inward smile, but that's a smile.
Yeah, right. Again, that seems to be a very proud smile. It's not,
Yeah.
it's almost a smirk, but more prideful than derisive, I think.
And look at the scar on the nose.
Yeah.
If I did this, it's just
Right.
a plain character.
Exactly.
Look at that.
No, that's what gives it depth. You're
Isn't
right.
that
Because
something?
otherwise, you're right. Just the bridge of the nose looks kind of flat.
Yeah, just a little
This
thing
is
like
what
that.
really
Yes.
gives it depth, I think.
Okay, when we do landscapes, we try to get a strong composition. I believe in strong composition. And this boat is pointing in. And if I pointed somewhere on a wall, you would look that way. And I'm pointing in with my boat to the subject matter that I want you to see. And what you see here is a twilight scene. And when you look at the sky, it's so bright that it bleaches out all color. And when you look at the water, it's like sunglasses. It filters all the colors of the sky in the water. And that's what you see in this painting. Yeah, there's much more that I have in home. You can imagine I have close to like 30 paintings.
Sure.
And of course, I'm going to be going on exhibit next year, and I have an exhibit that's going into the Hempstead house in Sands Point.
Of course. And
Next
you've
month.
been shown, I know the Port Washington Library has done exhibits of yours.
Right.
Dolphin Bookstore, and that's just
Yes.
some of the local places right here in Port Washington
Yeah.
where you've exhibited many of these things. And for those who are really interested, I suspect if you're of a certain age, you can come right down to the Port Washington Senior Center, and I suspect Ed will not only give you the tour, but give you a lesson as well.
Absolutely.
So Ed, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us and talk a little bit and show us your handiwork and show us some of your artisan residency here in the Port Washington Senior Center. They're doing tremendous work, and I know that you've been a major influence on them. So
Thank you.
I thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
So this has been Talk of the Town with Ed Balcourt, and I'm Wayne Wake, the North Hempstead Town Clerk, and I want to thank you very much for taking the time to watch us here today. Enjoy the rest of your day.